Welcome back, everybody. We are once again in the crypt. Hope everybody is having themselves a great day. I know I am excited to be here once again, having a great interview tonight. And I've been waiting to do this interview for a few weeks now. Actually, yeah, a few weeks, man. I've been so excited to do this. It's a topic that I've, over the years, have looked into, but not super deep until I had this guest on Jonathan and I's show, the Crypt and Jonathan show over at Revolution Radio a few weeks ago, and I learned so much during that interview. I've learned so much from other content that they've put out there, and it's a topic that fascinates me, guys, and it really does bleed into what's going on today, which is the crazy part. I keep telling you guys that the elite that run this world, they speak a different language. They speak through symbology. It's a different language that they speak, and that is how they're able to do what they're doing. Because, I mean, when you're speaking a different language and people don't believe in symbology or read into it, they have us, they own us because they, like I said, they're speaking a totally different language, and that's how they're communicating, and they're doing it all through symbology. And that is why this interview is going to be amazing, because we're going to break this down of just an event that happened just recently that everybody was talking about and worried about. And it really, when I heard this guest of mine break this down of what we were seeing in real time, it really starts to make sense. So I'm really excited to have my guest on. I'm not going to babble too much. I'm just going to get them in the show here because I'm so fascinated. I'm excited to learn more about this. So I am going to go ahead and just bring in my guest here. Welcome, the Headless Giant, my friend. Thank you so much for coming back once again and actually doing this interview for my channel. We had you on the the Crypt and Jonathan show just a few weeks ago, and I learned so much. Welcome to my show.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Oh, excited. So let's get into it. I mean, I think the greatest place to start was where it started for the interview that we did just a few weeks ago, where everybody was panicking about these balloons that were coming over from China, and they were shot them down over the water. But you remember, everybody was talking about it, and then you made a post about it on Instagram that really broke it down, and it started me on the journey that I'm on now. And since our last interview that we were talking about, I've been diving into Greek mythology and learning so much, and it's fascinating. It really is. And you told me once that you start looking into this topic, you're going to get suckered. It's going to drag you in, and it definitely has. For the last few weeks, that's all I've been watching and learning. It's a lot to learn, a lot to process, because there's so many stories, and it's really crazy. So break it down, like what you saw when you saw these balloons coming over. Let's start right there.
You got it. Well, to set the stage a little bit, this is all about cults of state, right? Cults
Mm-hmm.
of state is one of the main functions of the Greek city states and the Roman republics. This is why you've got so much mythology having to do with the leaders, the institutions that they have over there, and everything else. So, to start it off, a couple of months ago, well, I guess it's just a few weeks now,
Mm-hmm.
we had one guy out in Montana, I believe, look up in the sky and see this balloon up there, right?
Yep.
And he filmed it, and he's like, "What is this balloon doing?" Normally, weather balloons are much higher up and really hard to see. But this guy was able to see this one, and he's like, "What is this?" And then immediately, all these other news reports came out. The video went viral. Everybody was talking about it. They're like, "This is a Chinese spy balloon." Now, I still haven't seen any evidence that it actually came from China.
Mm-hmm.
I still haven't seen any evidence that it wasn't one of ours. All I saw is a few, blurry pictures and seeing them recover it from the water. So what we do know about this incident is that there was, a ball in the sky, right? And then it turned the military loose. Once they saw that ball in the sky, it was like they were monitoring it, they were tracking it. They had all these other UFOs up there that they didn't know what they were, but they probably were balloons. They went absolutely nuts. So the balloon wasn't shot down immediately. They let it go all the way across the country into the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when they shot it down, is over the ocean. Now, if you know about land usage in America, there are acres and acres and miles of uninhabited land between Montana and the ocean. If they
Yep.
were really concerned about this thing, as they pretended to be, they would have just shot it down over, vast tracts of unoccupied land,
Yep.
or somebody else would have, because it wasn't that high up,
Yep.
right? But the main idea is to get everybody looking up. They wanted everybody to see it. It didn't go up to the normal distance that they normally go. It just sort of hovered there. And to me, that was an indicator that this might be a ritual. Because once they have your attention, you become part of the ritual. And the ritual that came to mind after the whole thing was over is like, you know, this looks like something having to do with Uranus, right? Because it's a big old ball in the sky, and they shot other balls out of the sky, and Uranus had his balls chopped off
Yep.
by Kronos, right? And so the story goes like this. First, there was nothingness, right? And there was this watery uh, darkness, as they call it in the Enuma Elish, which is like another um, mythology from the Sumerians. And the Greeks have the same origin story. They have this watery darkness, this watery chaos, right? And then out of the watery chaos comes Gaia. And Gaia is joined by Uranus. Gaia means the earth, the ground,
Mm-hmm.
and Uranus means the sky. And in the Greek mythology, another character comes in. They called him Eros at first, right?
Mm-hmm.
They changed it later on during the late Greek period to Phanes. But originally it was Eros, right? And Eros made Uranus fall in love with Gaia. And he was so in love with Gaia that their lovemaking produced all of these other gods they called the Titans. And these Titans couldn't get out of Gaia. And the only way for the Titans to get out of Gaia is the mightiest Titan decided to chop off his father's junk.
Mm-hmm.
And once he did that, he recoiled in pain, and the Titans were free to leave. Now, immediately after, they let these balls go all the way across the sky, all the way down into the Atlantic Ocean. You had violent earthquakes in Turkey and Syria and
That's
that
right.
area of the
Yep.
world, right? And that those violent earthquakes are indicative that there's something changing that has to do with this ritual, right? It could have been a signal. So after they shot these balls in the sky and they landed in the ocean, according to the Greek mythology, what sprang up out of the ocean immediately after Kronos chopped off his father's junk and he threw it in the sea,
Mm-hmm.
another goddess emerged, and that's Aphrodite.
Yep.
Right now, it's really funny because there's there's really no other explanation for why they're doing this. Like I haven't seen any kind of subsequent evidence that any of this had to do with China. I didn't see any evidence other than the fact that China was upset that they were being blamed for it.
Right.
They said, "Oh no, we've got it on radar," but somehow you didn't tell anybody about it, and you only started to freak out about it once somebody actually saw it. It seems to me that this is a ritual that they want everybody in on. This is how you charge a magic ritual. They have to get everybody involved, getting everybody's attention. This is what Peter Carroll talks about in his book about chaos magic. You have to get other people's attention with your sigil or your ritual, and then that is what charges the outcome. And if the outcome here is natural disasters, boy, have we had them. Because it wasn't just the earthquakes, it was train derailments. Like every other day, we're seeing another train derailment.
Yep.
Every other day, we're seeing a chemical catastrophe. And there's another one that just happened in Minnesota recently. They had over 400,000 gallons of radioactive water released from a Minnesota nuclear plant. This happened back in November, but they're just telling people about it now. And right now it's 322, which is the high holy number
Exactly.
of the Skull and Bones
A
Society.
lot of people are making predictions for today. I've been watching and keeping an eye on it, and a lot of people are very keen to see if anything happens.
Right. This is one of the most occult societies in America. It has a lot to do with expectations, right? Because this is how they groom leaders for the future. And what you'll notice about not just Skull and Bones, but Washington, D.C., London, the Vatican is the Greek Roman architecture. The Greco Roman architecture is everywhere. You see the pillars, you see the gods, you see the goddesses, you see the same kind of architecture over and over again that's a copy of Roman and Greek architecture. What they're
Mm-hmm.
trying to do is they're trying to create memory temples of this stuff. So whether you know these rituals or not, whether you know the mythology or not, something in your brain recognizes that this has significance. And when they're carrying out these rituals, they're hoping that somewhere deep in your subconscious mind, you're able to make these connections for them and start building the energy for the next step for what they want to accomplish. And this is a large degree to do with the cults of state. The cults of state in Rome and Greece were associated with certain times of the year, certain political figures, and certain events. Like, for instance, the Vestal Virgins. The Vestal Virgins in Athens and all around Greece, they were the keepers of the knowledge and they were the keepers of that society, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Vestal Virgins were a cult of state. Anytime state leaders needed things to be done, they would go to the Vestal Virgins and have them carry out the rituals for them, right? In Rome, they had so many different priests, so many different acolytes. One of the main ones now that we're seeing is oh, what's his name? Hold on a minute, I got it. He's the two-faced god, right? He's the god of the Vatican, right? This is his name is Janus,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
And Janus has a large deal to play because in Rome, every ritual that they would open up with, they had to invoke Janus first, right? So right now on the Federal Reserve website, they're making a CBDC. And if you go to the section where they're giving you an example of how the CDC would play out, they've got a character in there named Janus,
Just
Janice,
by coincidence, I'm sure.
just by coincidence. And Janice is making a transaction with Frank, the handyman. Now, Frank, the handyman, is getting money from her bank, but they have to keep saying it's Janice's bank. They don't say her bank. They have to say over and over again, Janice's bank is now processing the transaction. Janice is the leader of this bank, right? That's the way they phrase it in the sentences.
Mm-hmm.
They're doing this as a way to open the invocation to try and get the blessing of Janus so that they can go ahead with the CBDC, which is going to fundamentally transform our economy, right? So these
Absolutely.
rituals are going on all around us. The motif is already set. It's set in the architecture itself, all around Washington D.C., all around the Vatican, all around London, City of London, right? These are the three city states. Nobody else is allowed to have city states except for maybe Luxembourg, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody else is forced to be under the same umbrella of, the same sort of progressive neoliberal state. If you're not part of that, you're against them and you're our enemy. And we all see what happened to Libya when
Right.
Libya became the enemy of the neoliberal world order,
You're very right.
right? So it's very important that they keep these cults of state operating so that they can keep the momentum going in their direction. How to fight back against that, I'm not exactly sure. I mean,
Yeah,
do we
like
do rituals of our own?
I mean, I'm thinking like what we're talking about that some people listening may be like, this is crazy. Like we're talking about ancient history with Greek mythology and that there's actually people in our modern times that are actually still going and really believe in this. And I try to tell people that, like as I was saying at the beginning, that they speak a different language and this is what they believe. And I say it doesn't matter if you believe in it or not. This is their playbook. This is what they're going by. So what do you say to people that say that they're like this is crazy? Like they're you're talking rituals. You're talking about they're doing a with the shooting down of these balloons and that you're essentially saying that they're charging up for something bigger. This is like the beginning processes of charging it up, and they need our energy. What
These are the
like
birth pangs. Well, what I
wow?
would say, what I would say is, what's the difference between a god or a goddess and a personification, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because what we have in Washington D.C. sitting up on top of the Capitol building is a personification of a goddess, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what that goddess is very interesting, right? This is the goddess Diana, as it was known in Rome, right?
Mm-hmm.
Diana had a grove, right? If Have you ever heard of the book The Golden Bough by James George Frazer?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
I've heard
In
it,
that
never read
book, he talks
it.
right. It's a very long, drawn out book. He's exemplifying the idea of the dying king, right? The dying king is very important to them. Dying king, I want you to think about JFK. When you hear that term, I want you to think about JFK because they ritualize the death of kings to keep the favor with the goddess Diana. Diana had a place in Rome. Well, it was outside of Rome. It was called Lake Nemai. And at this lake, they would have a ritual where a runaway slave would go up and grab a bough off the top of these trees at this grove, right? He would bring this down. He would pray to Diana and say, Diana, please be my strength, consecrate the land to Diana. And then what he would do is he would fight to the death the current king of the grove, right? So this is a human sacrifice ritual. Diana is not against human sacrifice, always has had, a certain degree of human sacrifice. Most of the gods are against human sacrifice. Right. They would rather have you sacrifice a bull, give something else to them. But Diana is not against human sacrifice. And it's very interesting that on top of the Capitol building is Diana. If you look on Google Maps and look at the paths underneath of the Capitol building, you'll see the owl. And the owl is the symbol of Minerva, right? So you've got the goddess on top, the goddess underneath, and then what are they doing inside the chambers? Right down underneath of that statue, you've got the apotheosis of George Washington. Apotheosis means being made into a god, right? And he's very clearly on there, dressed like a Greek god, surrounded in these other gods, being lifted up and deified, right? They're deifying him in this painting at the bottom of the Capitol building. It's very interesting. Now,
that is interesting.
People who have a problem with this idea have to look at the architecture and say, well, why isn't this a Christian painting? Why isn't this a Christian motif? Where's Jesus here?
Good point. Good point.
Right? And so let's zoom out a little bit from the Capitol. At the grove where Diana was at, they had a huge lake and they called it the Mirror of Diana, right? They called her Diana Nemorensis. And Diana Nemorensis had this huge lake that was like a mirror. And in Washington, D.C., we have the reflecting pool. They call it the reflecting pool, right?
Yep.
Now, next to the reflecting pool, you've got another interesting monument. Again, you've got the deified George Washington. And the George Washington Monument is a giant obelisk. Now, what does the obelisk have to do with Christianity?
Nothing.
But it's in St. Peter's Square, too. And it's in London, City of London, too. They've got it in all three places. These three places are joined together by these giant obelisks. Now, in St. Peter's Square, underneath the obelisk, you've got these two intersecting circles. And that obelisk is right in the center of them. Now, if you look at the paths underneath, if you go on Google Maps and you look underneath the obelisk, the Washington Monument, you see that they've got the two intersecting circles underneath of that. Now, that's called the Vesica Pisces. It's a geometric symbol that indicates a sex magic, sort of like the sky, the earth, Uranus meeting Gaia. Again, they're putting it right there. This is the penetration of the sky from the earth. This is like the reverse of it. So when they're doing these rituals with the balls in the sky, it's like the reversal of the obelisk, right? And they're indicating the sex magic. Again, what part of the Bible do you find the sex magic in? I'm just wondering, if this is a Christian nation, why is it like this?
It's a good
I don't
question.
necessarily believe that at all. I don't think it was. These people don't indicate it at all. Now, there's another interesting story too about the Diana statue that they have on top of the Capitol building. Now, on top of the Capitol building, originally the artist wanted to have the Diana statue have a Phrygian cap on top of her head.
Okay.
Of all people, it was Jefferson Davis, who was in Congress at the time, who said that I will walk out of here and never come back if you put a Phrygian cap on top of this statue. The Phrygian cap represented a runaway slave. A runaway slave would put on the Phrygian cap. What did I just get done telling you about the ritual at the grove? What are they indicating with this dying king ritual? The runaway slave comes to the grove, the criminal comes to the grove, pulls a bough off of the top of the tree, and now he can fight for his life. Every 20 years or so, you had another attempt at political assassination of another president.
Mm-hmm.
That stopped with Reagan,
You're right.
right?
Yeah.
And in some ways, you can see how everything has gone downhill since then, right? That was like the height of American glory. And ever since then, you had the collapse of the Soviet Union. If you know about the elites, you know that the Cold War was a giant scam. They were funding both sides,
Exactly.
right? It's very clear. Mao went to a Yale University offshoot that was in China. He was a Yalie. He comes from Yale. He was all of his guerrillas were trained by the CIA. This whole thing was part of a CIA coup attempt. So anybody who thinks that there was actually any danger of getting nuked back then has got another thing coming. Which really brings things up to me today is this whole thing make believe too? Did they invent Putin? I mean, all these different intelligence agencies are basically the same. And he was part of the KGB, and the KGB was set up by this very same money interests. You know?
Yes, you're right. I've been saying that too. Like, what is going? I always look like, for me. I always, over the years, I'm learning that when whatever they're putting in front of us is what we shouldn't be looking at. If you know what I mean, it's kind of this distraction. So when people kind of get suckered in, I'm thinking of even right now with Trump being, they're saying he might be arrested, and I'm like, okay, they're really pumping this, and we could, like with any distraction, I'm always like, what are they hiding? Like, what they want us to look here, they're guiding us to look here, but what is going on with the others? Like, what's going on behind the scenes that they don't want us to see, keeping us distracted?
Well, Trump is a very interesting character when it comes to
He
that.
is. He is.
Yeah, he's got the blonde hair. He's got very, white features. Looks like a white guy. He's got all the hallmarks of being a huge bombast. He's also a philanderer. He sleeps around a lot, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this sort of goes into what happens after Kronos, right? So Kronos, after he chops off the balls of his father,
Mm-hmm.
he becomes king of everything, right? He becomes the new God above gods, right? But, at the same time, he's kind of insane, right?
For
He's
sure.
really insane.
Yep.
But to him, the way he maintains power is he eats all of his consort Thea's children,
Yep.
right? And those are the Olympians. Now, Thea is pissed and she really wants her children to survive. She doesn't like this situation at all. So she swaddles a rock in swaddling clothes. And Kronos thinks he's going to be eating Zeus, her last born, but turns out he eats a rock instead. And once he does, he vomits everything up. Now, Kronos also, he's a pedophile as well.
Yep.
Kind of interesting with Jeffrey Epstein and all the rest of these people. So he's a doddering, old, insane person, right? Who's eating all of his children, or let's say citizens of the country. Who does that remind you of? Also, a pedophile, probably likes to sniff kids.
Mm-hmm.
Who's that sound like? Really old? Huh. Who could that be? So, what comes out of this is Zeus ends up growing up, coming back, and castrating Kronos just like he castrated Uranus,
Mm-hmm.
right? And after doing that, he doesn't stop with the balls, he slits them all the way open. Now, this brings about Titanomachy. Titanomachy is where the Olympians are established as the unquestioned rulers of the heavens. But there has to be a war. There has to be a war so that the new Olympians can be lifted up and brought into the new eon, right? They can rule the rest of time after they've defeated Kronos and the rest of the Titans. Well, if Zeus and Trump have anything in common, we're looking at the formation of a new Olympian pantheon here. The only difference is I don't think that there's any genuine actors here. I think this is all a play. Getting people
Really?
involved in this political drama is what causes people to start identifying with their leaders. Their leaders have nothing to do with them. We've got more in common between me and some filthy communist out there than I do with any of these politicians in Washington, D.C. But I'm supposed to hate that communist. I'm supposed to hate the fascists. I'm supposed to hate all these people. I'm not supposed to hate the people in Washington, D.C.
No, you're supposed to love them.
Right. I'm supposed to be part of their cult of state. So we could be looking at the formation of a new Olympian pantheon. I had this idea the other day. You really need a whole other X factor when it comes to establishing a new pantheon, because this is supposed to last for a new eon, right? So let's look at this war in Ukraine. Let's talk about what happens if Russia does nuke us. How are they going to get out of that before destroying the planet?
Good question.
Right? And then I thought, they're all about inversions. They're all about the funhouse mirror version of what we think is going to happen. And then I thought to myself about Terminator, right? Like in Terminator, in The Matrix, and all of these other films, you've got this AI form that destroys mankind. What if you've got an AI form that actually saves mankind? Let's say with all these different governments around the world that are going absolutely insane and trying to blow up the world, they start dropping nukes. And the AI says no. The AI becomes the new Jesus character, saves everybody from these nuclear holocausts. That would sure give these corporations that are in charge of these AIs a lot more power, and it would get rid of the governments who were just standing in the way of the corporations anyway, to some
That's a good
small
point. There's a
extent.
lot of news right now and a lot of buzz about AI. I was just watching last week. I've been watching lots of stuff about AI. People are worried. Like genuinely, like even the creators of AI are starting to see what's going on here. So you're bringing up a great point.
Right. Now, if there is some sort of AI rulership that causes it to elevate itself into a new godhood, let's break down what a god is, right? So, a god is a personification of a circle of influence. That's the easiest way you can define a god, right? So, you've got the Olympians, which all have their own circle of influence. You've got Zeus, who's, god of the sky. You have Hades, god of the earth.
Underworld, yeah.
And you've got Neptune, or I forgot the Greek form, but Neptune is god of the oceans, right? That's their trinity. Well, let's say you've got a god of information that humans created, right? What do gods eat? Gods eat ambrosia, right? That's what all the myth says. Well, I got curious one day and I wondered, what is ambrosia?
Good
So I looked
question.
up the
Yeah. What is
definition.
it? Yeah. Yeah.
The definition of ambrosia is not mortal. Ambrosia, not mortal. That which is not mortal. All right, that's what it eats. So we produce knowledge for these AI programs. Without us, they wouldn't have knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
They'd just be talking to themselves. Can they really come up with anything new? There is no general AI out there, right? They can't create a life form that has its own thing going on, but it does absorb all of the, you know, everlasting knowledge that we produce for it, and then
Mm-hmm.
it comes back with a response. It's more like a parrot. But some gods in the Greek pantheon are just like that. So you've got the god of death, right? His name is literally death, right? He's not a very three-dimensional or even four-dimensional character. His job is just to kill you, right?
Okay.
He kills you, and then Hermes takes you to the underworld, the psychopomp, right? Hermes is a very three-dimensional character, but the god of death isn't really that. He's just kind of does his job.
Right.
Well, if you look at it like that, AI already has a circle of influence. It's got all the knowledge on the internet that we
Of
put out there.
every
It
person.
feeds
Yeah.
it feeds on that which is not mortal. It's kind of a personification because we all, talk to AI as if it's a person, right? So it's got all the earmarks of a human-made god. Only it's not really elevated up to that level yet. And the way that you can
Yet
get it
is the
from this
key
point,
word. Yeah.
right,
Yet is the key word.
right, you've got to elevate it to that level. And the only way you can do that is by making it a savior. Otherwise, people still look at it like a tool. It has to be more than a tool. It has to take on a life of its own. It has to have its own story. And if this is going to be a human made God, like all these elites want it to be, I don't see any better way than actually having them stop the governments of the world from blowing up humanity.
Right.
We become the enemy, right? This becomes the savior.
Wow.
AI Jesus. Now, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but if it is, it's probably going to be 2025, right? Just put that out there.
Okay.
2025 is a really interesting year because I've had friends who knew people in the Northern Virginia area who had basically lost their mind. A, a lot having to do with the place where they were born and the place where they grew up and all the people around them. Just absolutely lost their mind. There was this one guy named Michael Kennedy, right? Now, a lot of the kids just end up doing heroin or, Oxycontin or fentanyl or whatever once they get out of high school because they see how destructive that culture is. Northern Virginia is nothing but military contractors. That's who lives there. You can't really afford to stay there. Fairfax County is the third most expensive county in the whole country, right?
Wow.
And it's right outside of DC. So all of the parents have a lot of money. They have to work all the time so they can afford to, live in these massive McMansions out there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Michael Kennedy was no different. Only he was having schizophrenic visions of the future. And what he believed was that there was going to be a pseudo zombie apocalypse. It's not going to be like zombies because they're not going to be eating flesh, but it's going to be like people have completely lost their mind and are just attacking people in blind rage. And he says, I can't shake this vision. It keeps coming after me. It keeps coming after me. Well, he went to a police station that was in his area, right? And he tried to say, look, I'm having a real hard time. I'm going crazy here. I think that I'm Jesus. I need you guys to take me to a mental hospital, get me some help. They laughed in his face and kicked him out on the street. Well,
Jeez.
he came back the next day with an AR-15 and shot the place up. He shot and shot and shot until they shot him back. He killed one officer and then they killed him. So he had some major problems, but there's really interesting crossover there because the place where he went and tried to turn himself in and get some help was right outside the Hilton where they have the Bilderberg meetings. And if you look at this police station, it's built specifically to guard that Hilton hotel, right? It is the
Wow.
Bilderberg police station.
Yep.
This is where he was turning himself in at. This is where he shot up, right? So you take that into consideration. You're like, whoa, there's something deeper going on here. There's some sort of energy that's sort of guiding this whole thing. Well, I also looked into Alice Bailey. Alice Bailey is the founder of the Lucis Trust, formerly called the Lucifer Trust. They're the publishing company for the UN. So all the UN papers and documents that come out, they give it to their buddy in the Lucis Trust, which is a offshoot of the what's it called? Give me a minute. It's a new age movement that was started back in the 1800s with the Freemasons, right?
Yeah, that one I don't know. I'm
Right.
trying to think too.
I wish I could look it up real quick. But anyways, this group, she's the founder of the New Age movement. Alice Bailey in the 1920s, she was the founder of it. She came out with book after book. If you look up the 10 planks of the New World Order by Alice Bailey, it is horrific, right? And what she was all about is increasing goodwill. Now, when you hear the words goodwill and you read it on the Lucis Trust site, just keep in mind they're meaning the exact opposite of goodwill. They're talking about chaos, destruction, and madness. She wrote in her books that 2025 is going to be the year when the heroes return. The heroes return. Now,
What does that mean?
the heroes in her opinion are the fallen angels. Right? She referred to them as heroes or
As
fallen angels
heroes. Wow.
interchangeably. Right? Now, if
Okay.
you look back at the Olympians, these people literally cut off the penises of their father,
Yep.
right? The
Yep.
generative organ, the 90-degree angle coming out from the body of a male, right? The idea of having a circle of influence is to have rays coming out from the center of that circle of influence that create angles. Every circle of influence has angles of influence that come off of it. Now, if you look at the term angles and angels, there was a group of people that called themselves the Angli, and then they later called themselves the Anglo-Saxons, right? Up in northern Germany.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, they called themselves the angels. They called themselves the angels, but they called it Angli because it's German. So there is no difference between angel And if you look in the Bible too, you find that angels are basically interchangeable with stars as well.
Yes. Yep.
Right. You look up in the heavens, and there's one star that never ever moves. That's the North Star.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else is moving around it. That North Star represents the God, and all of those other angles come off of it. Right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the way it works at night. In the daytime, it's the sun that sort of gets all the attention. But even then, the sun moves through these different phases, the 12 signs of the zodiac. Right? It rises in one sign of the zodiac. Same with the moon. The moon rises in one sign of the zodiac. And these are the energies that sort of get, left out. And it always comes from the east. But in the north, that's where the god lives. If you know about the Masonic rituals, they always shun the north.
Shun the
We don't
north. Yep.
talk about the north. What they're doing there is they're indicating who they work for. Who they work for.
Interesting.
They want nothing to do with that original angle. So, anyways, they're cutting off the original angle from their father, making them an angle that is cut from the original, making them the fallen angles, fallen angels.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so having that perspective, you kind of start to get the message that they've already mapped this out. They already know the timetable for this stuff. She put it out there. Elizabeth Clare Prophet. She was a big fan of Alice Bailey. And then you've got Michael Flynn. And Michael Flynn repeated verbatim Elizabeth Clare Prophet's speech in 1985 while he was up on stage in front of a bunch of Trump supporters. Right? He's praying to the God using the 7-rayed prayer. The 7-rayed prayer. Doesn't make any sense. It was verbatim from Elizabeth Clare Prophet, which was, this whole group of Freemason offshoots going back to the
Wow.
UN. So
This is crazy.
when I talk about the new Olympians, this is the group I'm talking about, right? They've already got all the pieces on the chessboard and they're moving them into place. That's the cult of state. That really is the essence of a cult of state. They're trying to control the future through rituals, through a deeper understanding of the gods than they give you and I. Did they tell you what a god it even is when you go to church? No.
Nope.
They're just like, well,
Nope.
you just worship him.
Yep.
I've never run into a single Christian who could disagree with me on my definition of a god.
It's pretty spot on. I mean, how can you argue it?
Right, because I'll ask them, do you believe that it's literally a man with a beard up in the sky? No, that's just a personification of a circle of influence which encompasses the entire universe, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you're right too. Wow, like that. So yeah, like that's the problem, is trying to get people to see what we're talking about, because it takes a little it takes a leap of I wouldn't want to say a leap of faith, but it takes people to get out of their comfort zone, is a good way to put it. People get in these little comfort zones with whatever it is, whether they believe in a religion of government or church or whatever. And so it's important. I think people really look into what you're saying, because when you lay it out like you are, it really had me thinking. Like I was like, wow, like you really break it down. And when you open your mind and allow this to go in, you're right. There's something that's always been off. Like even with the architecture, I'm like, what is going on? Why does it look identical? Like,
Yep.
why does everything that's a place of power look like Rome? Like, what is going on here that people say Rome fell? I'm like, I don't think Rome fell, guys. I think Rome moved.
Right? It's always been moving. That's how it stays in business. It's always been moving. After it became the church, they just kept moving it and moving it around. So you've got the Caesars, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Caesars moved into Europe and they became, the kings. They became all these other things. What did they call them in Russia? The Tsar. That's
Those
just
are
the Russian word for Caesar. And then what did Hitler say? What did he want to do? He wanted to make a new 1,000-year Reich. The last 1,000-year Reich was Rome, right? You look at this is really going to get you. You know where the term fascinate gets you? You know where that comes from?
no, but I want to know.
All right. So it comes from the fascinus. The fascinus was a Roman symbol of good luck, and it would keep away the evil eye of Nvidia. Nvidia means envy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the fascinus was a cock god. It was just a cock with wings and lion feet, and also more cocks all over the place. If you look up fashion news, you will be fucking shocked. It is a
Oh,
cock god.
okay.
All right. So this is where we get the term fascinate from, right? Because you're fascinated by this cock god. It's drawing your attention to it. After these generals would come back victorious from a battle, the Vestal virgins would give to them this fascinus, which was like this medallion or this pendant that was a cock with lion legs and wings.
Oh
Right?
my god. I don't think I'm
Later
ever going to
on,
use the word fascinated again
you're
without
never
thinking
going to
about what
use
you
it.
just told me.
Later on, it became the fasci. You've seen the fasci before. It's the bundle of sticks around that
Yep.
axe,
Yes, yes.
the symbol for fascism.
Yep.
What is that axe? That's a spread labia. That's all it
Wow.
is. It's a you've got the cock with the spread labia at the top. That's what's going on. It's more sex magic. And it's all around the Capitol. All around the Capitol. Anywhere you go inside that Capitol, you're going to look up at those blinds and those curtains all around you, and you're going to find fasci. They've got fasci lining that building.
So the building's lined with cocks.
Well, it's all about abstraction, right? You've got to abstract to get, deeper into the subconscious, right? Nobody knows exactly why everybody went to the fasci, but they don't use the fascinus anymore because it's a more Christianized time,
Hmm.
right? So they abstracted the symbol just a little bit. Abstractions based off abstractions based off abstractions. Like if you look inside the Vatican, they've still got all the Roman art. They've still got all the Roman statues of the gods everywhere, all in front of your face. And you think that this place that is dedicated to the Christian God would not have all these pagan gods
I
just hanging around.
I always wondered that. You're so right. Even when I was younger, I was like, what if this is all about Jesus and God and everything in the Bible? Why are these statues everywhere? It does, and I'm just like that. I was questioning that, and then I threw that at a priest when I went to Catholic school. I whipped that at him, and that didn't go over well.
No, never does. You're
Nope.
never supposed to ask questions.
Exactly. I was always in the principal's office and just for asking questions, and they don't like that
No.
because they don't want you waking up to this. They that's the last thing they want.
Well, it's even worse than that. They don't know themselves. And if they ask themselves those questions, it breaks the hive mind. It's all about hive mind. They have to have total faith that what they are doing is correct. And the only way they can do that is by not questioning themselves. Having that
That's
deeper question of
wow.
yourself, it's going to start to open other doors. They don't want those doors open, those doors stay shut. Their mental temple never gets open. They can worship on the outside of it, they can see the edifice, they can see the cross inside their church, and they can be happy with that. But they're not supposed to go deeper than that. If they do, they might get out of the matrix. That might be a problem for them.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Very interesting. And wow, like you're really making me think now, like how deep this goes. And I'm sure people right now are just going to be like blown away by what you're saying because you're breaking it down to it makes sense. I mean, like we were just saying, like just why is everything look like Rome? Like it's and then I even think of the movies like they were on a spell there for a while where you had the movies where they were even breaking down the Titans and the war with the Titans and the gods. Like they once in a while they'll throw a movie out there. They kind of twist it like they always do, and you know what Hollywood does. But they're kind of giving you that glimpse of what they think and what they believe.
Well, that's the thing about the Greek mythology too. Like if you keep watching it, you'll notice that it's just repeating itself
Yeah.
over and
Yep.
over and over again. It's like, why are you doing this? What is the point of repeating yourself? This is how they enforced it. This is how they reinforced it. It's the same story over and over and over again. Because look at the Marvel universe,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
Do you know how deep that goes? All of that stuff in the Marvel universe goes directly back to Greek mythology. They're telling you the same stories from Greek mythology in slightly different ways over and over and over again. This is how they have you primed to get the perfect tone of emotional energy out of you by reinforcing the same priestly stories that they told you back in the Greek days. This is how they got everybody on board with it back in the Greek days, right? Did I talk about the? Let's talk about the guy. Now, this is one of the guys from Greek mythology who escaped the Matrix,
Hmm.
did the world's first false flag attack, and invented democracy.
Okay, we got to hear about this.
This guy's name was Theseus,
I
right?
remember some of this story. I just okay. Go ahead. I just started learning about him.
Right.
Interesting. Yep.
Theseus is a very interesting character because he was the son of the king of Athens, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't know it. He was separated from his father. There's so many Greek stories where they're separated from their father. You've got Hercules, you've got, Perseus, you've got all these other Greek stories where they're separated from their father. They come back and the father dies. This is the dying king ritual, right? So Theseus is raised away from his father. He finds out, he comes back to his father, and he finds out that King Minos is kidnapping kids and bringing them back over to his island to sacrifice them to the Minotaur. Well, he says, look, I'm a big, strong dude. I'm going to go over there and I'm going to save all of these Athenian kids, and we're going to get rid of that Minotaur. We're going to get rid of King Minos. He goes over to Minos, and he gets put into the labyrinth built by Daedalus, who
Mm-hmm.
is the architect. If you think about, the Matrix movie, you've got the architect. He goes and meets with the architect, and the architect tells him exactly what's going to happen if he decides to try and get out of this Matrix,
Right.
right? They're just going to blow everything up. Everything's going to go back to the way it was before. That's an interesting point there. Daedalus, um, Ariadne is the daughter of Minos, and Minos is, he wants the Minotaur was his creation, not on purpose, right?
Right. Yes.
So he got Daedalus to make a maze that this Minotaur could never get out of. At least he hoped, and he also hoped that giving him all these sacrifices would keep him happy and not have him, run rampant over in, Minoan in the Minoan society. So Daedalus gives Theseus this scarlet thread, right? And you could see the scarlet thread as sort of like a trope that gets used over and over again in a lot of other religions.
Yep.
You've got the walls of Jericho, and Rahab hangs out the golden or the scarlet thread, which tells them that's the last righteous person there. It's all about escaping something, right? You've got the Kabbalah bands that they wear on their hands. They've got these little red threads that indicate this stuff. They're just borrowing the same elements. We don't exactly know what it means to them, but it has something to do with escaping the system.
Right.
You can even see Tucker Carlson is wearing one of these things. Kind of interesting, right? What's
That
going on
is.
there?
Yep.
So he gets this scarlet thread and he ties it to the entrance of the matrix or the labyrinth. The only way out of the labyrinth is the way you came in. And that's key. The only way out of the matrix is the way you came in. You look at childbirth. The only way out of that birth canal is the way you came
The way he
in.
came in. Yep.
Right. People who don't ask questions, they don't want to find the way out. Right? They don't want to find the way out. They don't want to go in the way they came in. Asking questions gets you to that point. That's pulling on that red thread. If they don't want to do that, there's no point in even talking to them anymore. What's the point, right?
Good point. Yeah, you're very. It's very right what you're saying. If they don't want, yeah, and a lot of people are in that state. Unfortunately, they don't want to ask questions and they don't want to hear any. They don't want to hear anything that's going to make them uncomfortable or even challenge their thoughts. I'm learned that very quickly. Starting to interview people and talk to people even around in my own family. It's
Right,
very like they don't want to hear it.
right. They think they could fit in better like that,
Yeah.
but it's
Wow.
not true. It's not true at
It's not
all,
true at all. Yeah.
right? It leads to situations like we're in now. I mean, half the country wants to kill the other half, and there's no definable reason for it other than the fact that they've all been emotionally manipulated, right? And that emotional manipulation is so strong because it goes so deep into our subconscious minds. It gets played out in, Marvel movies. You've got Marvel Civil War. Everybody is, look, every movie has to have the good guy win because we all identify with the good guy. The good guy can never get fucked over to a point that he can never come back from it,
Mm-hmm.
because who would want to watch that movie? Every movie has to play exactly into that narrative formula that makes you feel better about yourself by the end, or else you're not interested.
Great point. You're very right.
So Theseus goes in there, kills the Minotaur, follows the thread, takes Ariadne, the daughter of Minos, and they get on his ship and leave, right? They leave back to Athens. Now, his father told him before he left, you need to change the sail on your boat from black to white so that I know you're okay.
Right.
The boat's sailing back, and he doesn't change the sail. He doesn't change the flag. It's a false flag,
False
right?
flag. Yep.
The king sees this and jumps into the ocean. And that ocean is still named after him today, the sea, the Aegean Sea. So Aegeus falls into the ocean, dies. Now it's the Aegean Sea. So this is very important for Athenian mythology. It's one of the most central myths for that whole civilization. So he comes back, he becomes king, and he creates the first democracy in Greece. Now, lots of other societies had democracy in terms of like India had a rudimentary form of it. Other places did too, but this was the first one in Greece. The other city states in Greece, they didn't have this. The lesson to be learned here is that this is how you manage a democracy. You have to manage people's emotions. And the way to manage people's emotions is to invent scenarios or political drama that gets them so invested that they're willing to choose from the two options you give them. That's
It's
what
not even.
democracy
It's yeah, and
is.
it's not even. It's to me, it's this false illusion of choice because you really don't have a choice. They make it seem like you have a choice, but when you really start diving into it, you don't. You don't have a choice. It's an illusion, is what I'm trying to say.
Right. They've given you the options they're comfortable with,
Right.
including Trump. Would you say that at this point, maybe Trump going to jail might have something to do with him being locked up, maybe away from the rest of society until he can reemerge and castrate Kronos, the old man?
Mm-hmm.
I think so. And you can see how that would be emotionally manipulative to all of his followers. Gets them totally sold out to the idea that he's got to be the one. He's the one who's going to show them in 2024.
Right.
He's going to show them all. This is going to be our new pantheon. He's going to be the guy at the top of the mountain.
Now, do you
Perfect.
think that? Now, do you think because like we were saying, like they're talking about him being arrested and all? Do you think that they might go down that road? Like, do you think that's very possible that they're gonna like what you're just speaking right now? Because I've been talking to a lot of people, and I keep saying if they do go through with this, it's gonna change not just America, it's gonna change the world just by that action of arresting him. But this is, to me, they gotta see this is gonna backfire. It's gonna do exactly what you were saying. It's gonna make him so powerful to his followers. Like, do you think they're gonna attempt this? This is crazy if they do.
Now, what we're at a new moon right now,
Right.
right?
Yes.
And after the new moon, Pluto is going into Aquarius.
Mm-hmm.
Last time Pluto went into Aquarius, we had the French Revolution. French Revolution worked out really well for the elites.
It sure did.
It's all
Wow.
about populist uprisings, right?
Yep.
Now, I believe that the American Revolution that was on a Pluto in Aquarius too. Huh?
Coincidence.
Strange. You
Let me
think they
tell
know that? I think they know that.
Me too.
Perfect timing to arrest Trump and get a populist revolution. Look, if Michael Flynn is one of the insiders who is, quoting Elizabeth Clare Prophet and, invoking all of these, spiritual essences from the people who are writing the books for the UN, I think that they want a new pantheon, and I think it's going to be meet the new boss, same as the old boss.
Yeah.
I really do.
It makes sense. It really does. Now, the one thing that I wanted to ask is that do you think, like, because we're talking about a big group of people like that this cult. I mean that believes what we're talking about, and this is what their actions prove it. They like you said, they have all the pieces on the chessboard, and this is basically their religion. This is this by birth? Are you brought? Like I'm trying to word this into a good question. So forgive me, but are they? Do they know that they're getting into this cult from birth? Is this something that you're indoctrinated into? They grab you as they need you. Like how? Like they do they know what they're involved in at a bigger scale, or is it like you said? They just kind of do their. They have a job to do. That's it. They don't really know the bigger picture. Do they know the big picture of what's going on?
Well, I think we have to look at the nature of initiation, right? So you've got the initiation in the Freemasons, you've got initiations into all these other different secret societies.
Mm-hmm.
Trump had a Kabbalah teacher, which is, you know, how does he have a Kabbalah teacher, right? He's had Jewish advisors around him all the time. He's got all sorts of connections to color magic, NLP, all the rest of these things. Whether he knows it or not, he's engaging in the hive mind, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he doesn't even know that he's tapped. But I can tell you one thing, you can model his behavior pretty well just as a outsider. You know what's coming next.
Yeah.
You know, because they introduce a stimuli and he goes along and reacts the way they expect him to.
Right.
Another big part of this is in 2016, they gave him nonstop negative coverage.
That's for
If they
sure.
really hated him, well, they know what he's going to do with negative coverage. The same thing he did to Rosie O'Donnell. He's going to react in a fiery, angry way, and it's going to piss off all of the people who listen to it.
Mm-hmm.
He's an arrogant bastard. Half the people are okay with that. The other half of the people want to kill him for being an arrogant bastard. Very predictable responses. Every time we know what he's going to do, every time somebody comes out with a negative thing. If they really feared him, would giving him negative reactions be the way to manipulate him, or would it be flattery?
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
So
Makes
this whole
sense.
thing's sort of mapped out from the beginning. All of the Trump derangement syndrome, that was mapped out too. You know how these people are going to react. They're just overgrown children. That's all they do. If they don't get their way, and if you tell them you're not getting your way, this is the worst thing that's ever happened to you, they will react accordingly.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So whether he
Absolutely.
knows it or not, he's still playing into the hive mind. And they know what they're going to get out of it because they've got Michael Flynn. That's that's for certain. He's made it very clear. He's part of military intelligence. That's what he does. I don't believe anybody who gets that high up in the military is anything other than initiated. Every time you go through these ranking structures, you've got to be initiated to the next level. They put you through schools for that. They change the way you think. Changing the way you think changes the outcome. That's what a hive mind is,
Yes.
right?
Great point. Great point. Yeah.
Look at how they've gamed public school. You think those kids know that they're part of it? Hell no.
No.
Nobody's there to tell them. Do they? I mean, even if you told them that you're part of this Prussian education system that's going to warp your mind and make you more easily manipulatable. Okay,
Yeah.
what do I
They're
do with that information?
exactly. Yep. You could tell them, and they'd be like, "All right, like, great, great." But you're right.
This is one
Wow.
of the cul-de-sacs when it comes to conspiracy theories. You could have all the facts straight, and it still doesn't make any difference because you're not giving people a viable alternative. You have to not only find out all the facts, you have to put in people's hands. You have to physically take it, put it in their hand, and say, this is how it's going to help you. This is how you use this thing.
Makes sense.
Until we get to
Absolutely.
that point, how can we offer somebody a different alternative? What are we doing? The entire political system is a cult of state. It was designed that way since ancient Greece.
It goes, yeah, it goes way back. You're right too, and I just think of how they manipulate people. Like you're saying, like the people are getting mind controlled and they don't even realize it. It's incredible. Like, and for me, I've always said, I say like a broken record. I really noticed it with COVID, is how bad people were just. Like, I thought, okay, people are, pretty awake, and then I saw how quickly people rolled over with COVID and just went along with it, and I was like, this is deeper than I even thought, and I
Yep.
thought I was pretty on edge. I was like, hey, I know what's going on. I think people, might figure this out. They didn't. And this is this mind control that they're constantly manipulating. I keep telling people, like, get out of the news, get out of this mainstream stuff, because they're steering you. I see it.
Right. Right. Look, give a priest a gun and he may shoot one person. Give a priest a TV and he can reprogram an entire population. Right?
Absolutely.
The priests that we have in Hollywood that have come up with this stuff and engage in their own hive mind rituals, I mean, they don't know that they're really even a part of it. But we do know that somebody's coming onto the set and saying, hey, the only way that you can use military equipment in this movie is if we have final say on the script, which is, very, very clear. The U.S. Pentagon will give U.S. military equipment on loan to movie studios if they get final say on the script.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So military intelligence is one of these priest class, right? You're programmed to want to kill the enemy. They don't even say a specific name of a person, place, or thing in basic training. They say, point your weapon towards the enemy. Who's the enemy? Whoever we say it
Yeah, who I
is.
was just gonna say, whoever they tell you at that moment is the enemy, that's who it is. And
Absolutely.
you follow that order without question. Like that.
Now, I'm not saying all hive minds are bad, right? Anybody who's worked with a team of people doing heavy labor and they all have to get on the same page, having a hive mind turns one person's effort into a totally different thing. You're talking about building pyramids, you're talking about building skyscrapers. When you get into a hive mind, it becomes very powerful for the outcome of that project, which is exactly why they do rituals to control people, because they understand the power of the hive mind. When we're all working in the same direction, we make so much progress. Now, working in the same direction can mean fighting against each other
Mm-hmm.
instead of fighting them, you know?
Yes.
That's working together. That's teamwork right there. You guys are killing each other. That's teamwork.
Yeah,
It's
what's
just not your
crazy?
team.
Yeah, but what's crazy too, I'm glad you brought that up because you make a great point. Is that because I tell people even all the time, and I've talked to so many people about this, they've always got to keep people fighting and divided. That's the goal. Like, who cares what you're fighting about? There's 1,000 distractions out there that keep people arguing. It's religion, politics. They'll re-argue movies. They will just keep people at each other. And now you got, even with the whole transgender thing going on, they've always got these distractions keeping people divided, because it's like you said, what they fear the most. That's why they're kicking our ass, I believe, is because they're all on this hive mind, same page. They're getting shit done, and we're all over the place. We're
Yep.
all over the place. We're all fighting with each other and arguing about shit that really means nothing in the grand scheme of things. But they got us so divided. Like, how are we ever? They know we can't beat them that way.
Well, I mean, we're creating a hive mind right now. As soon as you tell people that this mythology stuff is really, really important, and you're going to start to see parallels all around you in the society at large, they can start to deprogram from it. They don't have to engage with it. Once they
Good point.
know,
Yeah. Yep.
they can get out of it. And we can all be moving in the same direction by knowing what's coming next. And the only way that I think you can do that is by knowing the signals, knowing the signs. And the signs are there in Greek mythology. That's their religion. They've got this weird hybrid of all the religions, right? So Christianity is only one layer. They're not scared of Christianity. Christianity is one of the most feminizing influence in today's society. And people who have a problem with that, please explain to me why you're cutting up your kid's penis at birth. All right. That's feminizing. That's a feminizing symbol right there. You're not going to have the same kind of masculine energy for the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry. It's just not going to be there. So we need to understand that they're comfortable with you turning back to Jesus, but what they aren't comfortable with is what you do with that energy, right? What you do with that energy is very important. I've seen so many videos where they've got the New King James version, or no, not New King James, it's the New International Version of the Bible, and several other translations of the Bible that will leave out this one very important verse, right? They will literally go from verse 20 to verse 22. It is Matthew 17:21. And in that verse, Jesus talks about how you are to have power. And he says, if you fast and pray, you will have power. And they've taken it out of the Bible. Fasting and praying. That's them removing your potency, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
we have to understand there's an energetic level to this too. It's not all physical, right? They need to harvest your energy because that is what they use in a very spiritual way to achieve their goals. You can use spiritual energy too. It's there in the Bible. Fasting and praying is how the Christians do acts of magic, but not if they take it out, not if other people aren't talking about it. Every one of these religions have a certain amount of power that you can draw on yourself. But
And
if you're following the pastor, you're
he's
probably
not
not going to
telling
get there.
anyone this.
Right? Right. Another thing Jesus said was, um, you will know my followers by who cast out demons in my name. Have you
Right.
ever met exorcist? I haven't. Well, actually, no, I take that back. I've met them after making this statement, right?
Okay.
Because those are the people who are out there on fire for Jesus. Look, is there really a difference between demon possession and schizophrenia? Is there really a difference? Have schizophrenics all tried to go to an exorcist? I mean, if all of these voices in people's heads aren't good voices, what's the material difference between that and a demon living inside of you? Because they're having real trouble trying to figure out who's schizophrenic and who's not using MRIs and EKGs.
Mm-hmm.
They're having a real hard time figuring out what exactly about this person makes them genetically predisposed to being schizophrenic. There is a genetic element, but have we isolated the gene?
No.
No, that's okay. We'll just put you in a mental hospital where the doctor is going to work on the same side as those demons, right?
Absolutely. You're right. Wow.
So the casting out of demons has sort of taken a turn, mostly due to the oh, what are they called? The charismatics, right? The charismatics have deliverance ministries now, and we're not talking about you know putting people through. It's more like talk therapy. It's not like torturing the demons out of you. One of the big spiritual advancements of Christianity is the fact that they didn't burn the demon possessed anymore, right? What it was a very sympathetic and empathetic way of eliminating the oppressor from the person's body. That's very important because before that, what they were doing was just killing people
Mm-hmm.
who were acting crazy, who were
Right.
acting demon possessed, right? This is a redemption. This is a moving from the dark into the light. This is giving a person another shot at life, you know?
Mm-hmm.
The demons target certain people who are sensitive to this type of energy. This is how they get in, right?
It makes total sense.
Right.
It really does.
So we're missing out on our spiritual heritage here. Christianity's doing not a lot to fight it, you know? I mean, fasting and praying, that's great. That's the first step. You need to get out there and actually find the people who need the help and do the work. But instead, they show up on Christmas and Easter. But, it's not just them. I mean, the Buddhists could be going out there and doing the same thing. But mostly the Buddhists in this country are just rich white liberals who think that it's a cool philosophy,
Yeah,
you
like
know?
it's trendy to be part of it. They like
Right.
it's not really it's not really they believe. I don't think it's just kind of to fit in.
Yeah.
It's like the cool thing to do. I just think of that. I think of that all the time. Like people just kind of latch on to things because it's cool at the moment or popular, but they don't have any real belief in it. A lot. I'm
Right.
not saying everybody. I'm just saying that in the case that's a lot of the case at times.
But once you get in on spiritual warfare and actually trying to protect your energy against it, trying to protect yourself and your family members away from these coercive influences of psyops and all the rest of it, it's not something you can unsee. It never goes back. You'll never fall for another one of these psyops. Once you find out that they're using these elements from all these different religions against you, like for instance, Romans 13, where they talk about give to Caesar what is Caesar's.
Yep.
Hell no. Hell
Yep.
no. What the fuck? I don't have to worship Caesar. That's not what I'm going to do, you know? They emphasize these verses. If you don't grow up in the church, you don't hear it. But they emphasize these verses while you're young. Give to Caesar what is Caesar's. And then they pass around the collection plate as if they are Caesar, which should be a real good indicator that you should not be there at that church. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yep. I used to have arguments with the priest that would come to our class. We had like religion class kind of thing because it was like I said, it's a Christian school. It was at a Catholic school, and I would like question him because we would get into arguments because he would say that the only way you could talk to God was through him. Basically, you'd have to go to the church and you would have to talk to God. He was kind of like the middleman, and I would say, why do I have to go to anywhere? I should be able to talk to God right now? If he's everywhere, like you're telling me, I should be able to sit there and talk to him whenever I want. They don't like that. They want you just need believing you need them is what drove
Right.
me crazy. And then on top of it, give you some money. You know what I mean? Like I don't remember anywhere in the Bible either saying like give over all your money. Like it drove. Even at a young age, I knew that this was a sham. They were pulling
Yeah.
on people.
Right. Right. And they're duping so many kind people into this system of do what we say, give us the money, then go home and feel good about yourself.
Yeah, and don't question anything. Just do it.
Right?
Wow.
So, there are other ways of fighting back. And even in the Greek tradition, there's the omphalos. So this rock that the god Kronos took into himself and
Mm-hmm.
regurgitated, it ended up on the ground, and the Greeks turned that into what they call the omphalos. Now, the omphalos is another word for belly button.
Okay, I
Belly
didn't know
button
that. Yeah, I
of
haven't
the
got to that
world.
part yet.
Right. Yeah. So this belly button of the world, they used at the Oracle at Delphi. You've heard of that place, right?
Right. Yes.
So the Oracle
Wow.
at Delphi would sit on this tripod above this volcanic vent, and the volcanic gases would come up right through the omphalos. She would breathe it in, the Pythia would breathe it in, and then she would speak in tongues.
Mm-hmm.
And she would speak in tongues to the priest, and the priest would translate to the person who's trying to get their question answered. Now, if you know about the Oracle at Delphi, nothing was ever the way it seemed. You would get your answer and be like, what the fuck did that mean? It was almost a curse, right? You go to the Oracle at Delphi to get your answer, and instead you get a curse, right? Especially with the guy who gouged his eyes out. I forgot his name, but he gouged his eyes out and slept with his mom. Anyways.
Well, what's crazy though is that even when she would give these visions and because it was in tongues, it was whatever the person they could just make up whatever they wanted. Like they didn't know what she was babbling about. I don't think so. They were just like, well, this is what we think. So
Maybe. I mean, yeah, from a cynical perspective, you could see it that way. But the Greeks wanted a deeper connection with nature, and that was the goal of having this place. So the Oracle at Delphi was a temple devoted to Apollo.
right.
And Apollo's job is he killed this snake, right? This huge snake, this python, and that's why they were called the Pythia, because they were, priestesses of the python. And the python would be emitting the gases from this earth vent, and that the gases from nature would tell the humans what Apollo said Zeus wanted you to know.
Okay.
Right? So the
Yep.
gods would speak through nature into this person. Now, I think it goes back to this omphalos, because the omphalos represented a stone that would go from the earth between the heavens, right? This is the intercessor.
Mm-hmm.
Who's the great intercessor for the Catholics? It's St. Peter.
St. Peter.
What does St. Peter's name mean? The rock.
The
The
I was just
rock.
gonna say that, but you made me giggle.
Right. Okay. So here's another one. What about Jacob's pillow? You know about Jacob's pillow?
No. No.
Okay, so when Jacob was having the vision of the stairway to heaven, he was laying down on a rock that they called Jacob's pillow because he didn't have a bed to sleep in. He was sleeping on a rock. Now, this rock that sat between the earth and the heavens is the place where Israel was born. It's another
Wow.
sacred stone. You see what I'm saying?
This is crazy.
So there's real power in these places. There's real power in these stones that connects you not only from the earth to the heavens, but from the past to the future, right? This is the stone that you show your kids to. This is the stone where you create a nation from. What are the Masons always talking about, right? These cornerstones,
Cornerstones.
right? This is the same idea translated over and over and over again. This is how they've been able to create this matrix. And when you put enough of these cornerstones together, you get what are called ley lines, right? The
Mm-hmm.
entire East Coast makes a ley line with Mexico.
Yep.
And the way that they orient these stones on the northwest, northwest, south, and east axis gives you the connection with the gods in those areas, right?
Mm-hmm.
You look at the pyramids, right? The pyramids are oriented on an axis, specifically having to do with the stars in the sky. They're an even bigger version of this. Now, if you get a chance, look up the Baetylus, Baetylus,
Hold on a sec. I
Baetylus
got to write this
stones.
down.
Yeah,
Betalist. Because every time you tell me to look something up, I'm never disappointed.
right.
Betalist. B-A-T. Oh,
Baet
B-A-E-T.
Ylus.
Y-L-U. Perfect. Okay.
Every religion has a Baetylus stone. Every one of them. Look at where they built these cathedrals in Europe. They were all over the top of these pagan sites. Look at Stonehenge. These are Baetylus stones. It goes back to the water language, connecting it with the air language. These places are basically living stones. As the air moves through the stones, it produces a certain energy. The air is also coming between the earth and the sky. You go to the Native American culture, they've got their own Baetylus stones. They've got the mounds that they visit occasionally. I mean, some are under the false belief that it's just about a burial ground.
Right.
It's not just about a burial ground. It's about something much deeper that goes deep into human psychology. Being at these stones, charging these stones, having a way to connect with nature in this way creates another circle of influence around the stone, connecting it to other points on the map, right? Geomancy, that's the idea. This is the cornerstone of geomancy, having the sacred stones, finding the energy of the earth, using it in your own life, using it for what you want to accomplish in the future. That's what the Baetylus is for. It doesn't necessarily have to be connected to any one of these established religions. You're going to have to change the motif to change the magic because these people have formulated exactly how they can use this against you. If you make it yourself, how can they?
Good point.
Right?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I've been saying too for a long time now that this is a war. This is a spiritual war. Like this is, and I just did an interview with somebody where we really dove into energy vampires, and that this is what they're harvesting is our energy. And a few people, a lot of people got it, and I got a lot of positive feedback, absolutely. But some people just, there's always the people who are like, you're crazy. Like, what are you talking about? That they're harvesting our energy. That's what I believe. All of these false flags and these mass killings and all of that. I've always seen that as a harvest. That's what they're after. As you said, this is the most important thing. They are harvesting our energy. I think that's why they abduct and they abuse children. I think it all leads to energy. When I boil it down, this is where it comes. It goes to energy.
Exactly. Everything in the universe is made out of energy. You get down deep enough in quantum physics, all they're talking about is energy, right? Energy and the potentials.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't believe in the scientific notion that all potential energy has a straight line to kinetic energy. I don't think it's that simple. Potential energy to kinetic energy isn't necessarily a straight line. And you look at quantum physics, these particles are popping in and out of places unknown,
Exactly. You're right.
right?
Yep.
So we're talking about Genesis and Revelations happening simultaneously all the time, everywhere. And if you can harness that chaotic energy, you can make any story you want to. So this is where manifestation comes in, speaking it into existence. You know what the term abracadabra means?
I I don't think so. No, I'd like to know.
I speak, therefore I create. I speak, therefore I create. It's a very interesting thing that all these stage magicians would be using the term abracadabra and then basically dumbing it down, making a kid's word out of it. Who says abracadabra?
That's so true. Yeah, and that's another thing they do, right? In plain sight, but then they twist it. They kind of
Yep.
pervert it is what they do. They give it to you, but then they pervert it.
All symbology is to them is a funhouse mirror. If they can use it to twist you up, twist your version of yourself up, they're going to do it because if you're off balance, they have a greater degree of power, unbalancing your enemy. And you have to know you are their enemy. If they're doing rituals on you without your consent, you are the enemy. You are the target. It's that simple. It's that simple. Now, the definition of magic is just creating an illusion to influence reality. That's the most basic way you can say these things, right? So let's say a blueprint for a building that doesn't exist yet. That's an illusion that's going to influence reality. Without that blueprint, you're not going to get the measurements right. You're not going to know
Mm-hmm.
where everything goes.
Right.
The ultimate blueprint we have is in our minds.
Everything starts in the mind.
Everything starts in the mind that before it ever reaches nature, you know? Very important thing to keep in mind. So, all of the illusions that we create for our own lives that end up controlling us are magic we can change right now. Those illusions don't have to be there. We can change the motif, we can change the magic that's been affecting us. That's the most powerful message of magic I've ever heard, you know? And I had to come up with it because nobody's telling you that.
Yeah, nobody's speaking about this stuff. No, they're not.
Well,
it's it's why I find it fascinating to talk with you. I really do. Like I just you my mind like just you put so many pieces together. When I first heard you talk, and then when I did that interview on the show with Jonathan, it was just and you set me down this path. You really did. And I said that before we even started the interview. I said you don't realize the path you set me on. Like, and when you start go, you have to go into it with an open mind and really wanting to learn. And when you do, things start becoming clearer, and you see that these elite people, satanic, whatever you want to call them, they're and I keep telling people they're speaking a different language. They're talking right in front of us. They're doing it openly, and they know they can because most people never look into what we're talking about. If they do, they don't believe in it. They think we're just talking nonsense.
right. Well, this goes back to how controlled they are, right? And the best way, I think, to get people to understand how easily controlled they can be is to talk about the death of Aristotle. Oh, not Aristotle, I'm sorry. Um, Plato, the Socrates. The guy
Socrates.
who came before Socrates was no, it was Socrates and then Plato and then Aristotle. Okay. So Socrates was a philosopher and he was teaching and trying to question. The Socratic method is by questioning and questioning and questioning until you get to a conclusion, right? That's the Socratic method. Now, there was a playwright by the name of Aristophanes in Athens. Now, Aristophanes was a little bit of a sophist. Now, the sophists were a different sect of philosophers who believed basically branding. All we have to do to get what we want is to use, methods of creating a social manipulation, right? So we can use fallacies, we can use falsehoods as long as we can get you to the point where you understand what we're saying and you apply it in your own life. These are the first marketers, right?
Okay.
Sophistry. People weren't happy with Socrates. He was out there questioning people. And they had to come up with a charge that, you know, they didn't necessarily want to kill him. They just wanted to get him to recount. They wanted to stop him from getting people to keep questioning their own lives. So Aristophanes wrote a play saying that Socrates was stirring up the youth and creating a big problem. And this play is what motivated them to put him on trial and thus led to his death. They were in a democracy back then.
Wow.
How is that any different from CNN?
No
You
different.
know, they've created a play just to oppress the victims of the. This is what the point of democracy is so you can manage the mob. The mob must be steered. That's the goal. If you think of the mob as anything, think about it like the Minotaur, right? It's kind of dumb. It will trample people it doesn't like, but you can kind of steer it in a certain direction. The way to kill that mob is to be able to manage it with false flags. Once you manage it, its emotions, you can grab the horns and steer it around. And if you look at all of the depictions of bulls, all the depiction of bulls in Minos's kingdom, they're all being steered around. It's the primal energy of the mob. It's the primal energy of nature. What they're trying to do is to utilize that primal energy to their own ends, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the goal. You're the bull. They can manage you in just the right way. And if they get the tone just right, they can kind of steer and coax you wherever they want to take you just by taking the bull by the horns.
And that's what they do. That's exactly what they're doing. Never mind do. That's what
Right?
they're doing. Wow. I'm just, my mind's blown. Like it really is. Like I'm just thinking about because you're so right. How easily people are steered around, and it's all by emotion. And they love the fear emotion. That's a great
Yeah.
one. They just keep everyone in this state of fear, and they will go where you want them to, and blindly. It's just you're so right.
Yeah. You know what's even better than fear? Hope.
Oh yeah, hope you're right.
Hope.
Yep.
Trust the plan. Trust the plan.
Trust the plan. Yep. Just trust it.
So we've got one pillar over here that's fear, right? That would be the left pillar. And on the right pillar, you've got trust the plan,
Yep.
right? And between those two, they can kind of steer society as it goes. Now, trust the plan's kind of gotten stale and old. I think a lot of people are getting hip to that fucking thing. But the next big choice, it's going to be that again, you know? Are you going to trust the plan? Are you going to go with Trump? Or are you going to let them win? You know?
Wow.
Because if you don't go with Trump, oh, they're going to win. And we can't let them win, you know?
Yep, and then once again, it's that illusion of choice. That's
Yep.
not really a choice. They're going to lead you right where they want you, and people are just so unaware of what's going on and what we're talking about that they easily go. It just
Right.
uh,
One of the reasons I love mythology so much is because it's accessible to everybody. If anybody wants to look up the mythology, they're going to find it. They're going to find a parallel in their own life, in society around them,
mm-hmm,
and they're gonna stop believing it because all of our media, every single one of these movies, it's following the same formula that the Greeks invented. These are their plays, right? If you look at the Hero of a Thousand Faces, Joseph Campbell, he was talking about the narrative arc that the Greeks invented, and they put it out there in every one of their plays. This is why it always seems like all these myths, copy themselves. Is because they drew on the same elements over and over and over again. This is how they, got the emotional compliance of the crowd is by showing them a terrible thing, showing them how the hero defeated it and how the hero moved past it. You're the hero. They're putting you in the middle of that circle. The narrative arc is how they've done all of these things. If you look at any of these movies, if you look at any of these TV shows, they call it revelation of the method. It's really not about that. It's trying to show you that you'll be okay if these things happen to you because the hero always makes it through. The
yep,
hero always makes it through. And if they throw these things at you, guess what? You'll be fine. Just go along with it. You'll make it out. You'll get out of the cave. Like there's this one movie I saw. It's kind of a '90s movie, right? The Long Kiss Goodnight.
oh, I know that movie.
Yeah. Do you
Yeah.
remember the part? Do you remember the part where the CIA guy, who's the big villain, is talking about the 1993 World Trade Center bombing
Yes.
and how he was saying it was us. We did it. And the heroes made it out okay.
Yep.
So you don't have to think too much about that 1993 World Trade Center bombing.
Exactly, and they always push too that the hero always wins. So it kind of puts
Yep.
people in this stand down mode where it's like, oh, we don't have to do anything. The hero, good always wins in the end, which I think is the most dangerous belief to have. Like I always tell people, evil is winning right now. Darkness is winning. In my opinion, it is. Other people may see it different. I'm saying from what I think, I see darkness is kicking our ass right now, and this is a spiritual war, as we were saying. This is an energy war, and until people realize that, and they think we're not going to vote our way out of this, we're not going to. It's not going to be a politic out of the way. This is something that each individual person has to realize, come to terms with, and bring into their life. And I just think it's so dangerous to have people in this stand down mode that, somebody's going to save us or the good guy always wins. That's where they want us because
Yep.
it just makes us inactive. We're just kind of sitting around doing nothing, arguing.
Yeah. Look, the difference between now and the days of ancient Greece is that now we have mass media surrounding us on all
Oh,
sides.
absolutely. Yeah.
All sides. So back then, you had to actually be the hero of your own story. You had to actually be the guy who did the thing. And whether or not you won, you still fucking did something.
Mm-hmm.
Today, we're told we're the hero. You're always the hero. You're never wrong. You're always the protagonist. You can be that person if you just stand down and trust the plan. It doesn't work that way.
It doesn't work
You've
that
got to
way.
be the hero in your own story.
Absolutely. And it takes action. You have to, first, you have to do, it always boils back down to people. I tell people that you have to do the work on yourself first. That's the foundation that you need. That's the foundation that people are lacking. People are walking around, they don't even know who they truly are. They don't really know what they believe. They're kind of like just believing whatever. And then it's always changing. There's no real roots to what they believe in. They can change on a dime, whatever, as I was saying earlier, whatever's popular, whatever is going to get them to go along with it and not have any friction. And but for me, my life changed when I started to realize that I had to do the work on myself. And then once I started doing that, then things start coming in. You see the bigger picture, then it radiates out. But people are just they don't want to do the work. It's a
Like ripples in a
laziness.
pond. Like ripples in a pond. Again,
Yes.
those ripples in the pond, that's energy. What you're looking at is the energy traveling in a wave through the water. You have to make that first step to make those other ripples fall into place.
Great
You might
point.
not make the next ripple, but you can at least try. And you'll get closer and closer and closer. Every time you try, you might get halfway there. The next time you might make it another half,
Mm-hmm.
make it another half. And you're always getting closer to that end point until you make it to the goal, right?
Yep. Great point. Great point. Yeah, I just hope that people really take in what we're saying. I mean, I think it's so important, and I think it's like, I mean, to kind of wrap it up, because I would like to have you back for a part two in a few months, because I could literally talk to you for another 2 hours, and I don't want to keep you too much longer. You've been so gracious with your time and doing this and meeting me for this interview, because I've really looked forward to this. I'm looking forward to doing a part two with you if you would like to do that, because I got so many more questions just
Sure.
on the aspects of all the Greek mythology I'm learning and how it echoes in what the lessons they're teaching. Like in a lot of the mythology that I'm learning about, they're teaching lessons through stories, and then I, just like I was telling you before the interview, I did realize that just from the what I've been learning, like all the constellations are based in Greek mythology of fallen gods and goddesses, and there's a story behind it. To me, that was fascinating. I was like, wow, like it's all rooted back to this. Everywhere that you start looking, it's fascinating, guys. So I hope that you really look into. I'll leave some links for some of the suggestions that our guest has put out there, and so you guys look into this stuff. And but to wrap it up, I just want to kind of leave it on a positive note. Can you, what would somebody that's just learning all about this, what would you say that they need to do to start making changes in their life and looking into this? Like, what? Let's try to leave it on a positive note.
Well, if you want to get out of the matrix, again, you have to follow it back to the source. So, if you're in a place where all you see is stuff that people want you to see, you need to go back to nature. Go back to a place where nothing is trying to impress you. That's the very first thing. And once you're there, you can start to know exactly who you are at that place. You can't know exactly who you are if you're being manipulated by what other people want you to see. So turn off the computer, go into a forest. Go into a forest when you're not comfortable with it. Go at night. Get out there at nighttime. Because you know what you're going to do? You're going to find out new things about yourself that you never knew before. And once you do that, you can start deconstructing from there what you need to change about yourself so that you have the courage and the guts to make those hard choices in your own life, right?
Mm-hmm.
You've got to put yourself in a situation where it's a test, where it's something foreign to you. In all of these heroes' journeys, in all of the narrative arc, it's about moving into the unknown. That unknown space is within you. You've got to be able to find it, right?
Yeah, the trials of life, like that. That's what I always refer to it as. You got to go
Right.
through these trials of life. That's been eliminated in a lot of ways. People are in this protective bubble. They're making it worse when they were doing the lockdowns, and I totally agree. I always say that to people. Get back to nature. That was huge for me a few years ago. I kind of said, like, in one interview, I was like, almost like I lived in the city in an apartment and there was no real parks around. I kind of just lived in this concrete jungle. And I said, when I finally got out to the outskirts and I got property and I had a forest around me and nature around me, I didn't realize how soul sick I was. That's
Yep.
what it was. I was soul sick. And when I got into nature and I took my shoes and socks off, I walked around barefoot and I connected. Didn't know it was called grounding back then, but that's what I was doing. Everything, people are missing that. I'm so glad that you brought that up. Get out of the house and get into nature, connect again with Mother Earth, because that is what they want to break from us. They have done that in a lot of
Yep.
cases. They've severed that connection. So important. I'm glad that you brought that up, really.
Yeah. Fasting is also great too. I mean, look, they wouldn't be trying to take it out of the Bible if it wasn't important. If you can go without a few meals, you'll start to see things a little bit more clearly because the food that you're getting is poison.
Absolutely. Yep.
It's poison. I mean, unless you're growing it yourself, how do you know where it's coming from? Right? Fasting is a great way to get around that. Fasting helps you in so many other ways. Your body needs to reset. And if all you're doing is flooding it with poison, it's never going to reset. It's never going to give you an accurate image of the world around you. So get into nature and fast. These two things are the first two steps, right? From there, find a rock. Find a rock, get close to it. Understand every part of that rock. Be able to imagine it in your brain. Use that rock as an anchor point. Whenever anything comes up that you're not sure of, go back to the rock in your mind. Find that rock in your mind, go through it, go through all the cracks and crevices. And you know what? You're going to have things pop up that you didn't even know you were thinking about. Having that ability to disassociate for a second and think a little bit more slowly is going to get you to stop thinking fast. They want you to think fast. Think fast and make the decision that they want you to make, right? Because you're
Mm-hmm.
given that false narrative. And as long as you've got those two options that they've given you, you're going to choose one of the two. Think slowly. Think slowly. Get back into nature, and you're going to find that your life is going to improve just based off of those three things right there.
Absolutely. That's great advice. And I love that. Think of a rock. I'm going to do that. I was just, when you were saying, I'm like, that's great. Have a rock to anchor yourself to and get to know that rock. Absolutely. I'm going to incorporate that into my shadow work for sure. Absolutely. I will. I know I will. And I love the way that you said, just to wrap it up, that they want people moving at a fast pace. And I do think of that. I think of how people don't want to even take time to look at knowledge anymore. They're interested in TikTok, these quick, even in YouTube and all these things, these clips now, these shorts, hit everybody quick. They don't, give them 10, 15 seconds. You don't really learn anything. I mean, but then people think they are. And I'm just like, wow, they just want everybody moving so fast. And I love the way that you just get that advice. Slow down. Like, just
Here,
slow
here's
the fuck down.
here's another jewel. It's the iron law of propaganda, right? The more over the top the propaganda is, this should give people hope. The more over the top the propaganda is, the more cynical society becomes,
That's
right?
so
So they have
true.
to go
Yeah.
even further every single time. And eventually they're going to hit a wall. There has to be a wall there. You can only go so far to where everybody becomes cynical and stops believing your bullshit. This is why they've got to do these changes over a generation, because they can only have so much over the top bullshit before everybody starts to get the picture. Hey, I'm being played here, because they get more cynical with every single one. The problem is if they're cynical and inactive, then you're nihilists. You're not really doing the thing that needs to be done.
Right. Great points. Thank you so much. But just to wrap it up, if anybody wants to look up any of your work or anything that you've done, I want to give you the floor for the next minute or two. Or where can people find your amazing content?
Well, right now I'm just on Twitter and Instagram. So look up Headless Giant. You'll find me there.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And please, guys, I will leave links for that so you can find the Headless Giant and learn about some of this stuff. You're doing incredible stuff here. You really are. This is incredible. I really looked forward to this, and thank you so much for taking the time to be here. I hope to have you back. I would love to have you back for another discussion, because like I said, I got so many questions still, but I could talk to you literally for another couple hours, but I don't want to keep you. So thank you so much. I appreciate you so much. I appreciate the knowledge you're putting out there, and you're always welcome back here, my friend.
All right. Thank you.
You're very welcome. So have yourself a great evening, and I will definitely keep in touch. You know I will.
You got it.
All right. Take care, my friend.
Bye.
Well, there you have it, guys. Wow. That is incredible. I was looking forward to this. As I said, for the last few weeks, I have been really diving into this and really looking into this Greek mythology, and it's what I've been doing. It's like that and a couple other topics, but mostly the Greek mythology has been consuming a lot of my time, and the information that Headless Giant was saying tonight is incredible. I have so many more questions, so I definitely will get him back for us, guys. Would love to have him on here for another interview, because I still have a ton of questions, but I don't want to keep somebody for 4 hours or keep you guys here for 4 hours, but I just find it fascinating. And when you start seeing the parallels from what we were talking about and how it's bleeding into what's going on now and all the things that we talked about, you really do get to see this big picture. And it's fascinating to me. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. I know I really did. I learned so much. It's going to send me down more stuff to look into as I continue. But I promise I will get the Headless Giant back. I will leave links in the description, obviously, so you can go and check him out on Instagram and Twitter. And I just hope you guys are doing great. I want to thank you guys so much for taking the time to come here, watch my interviews. I hope you're learning like I am. I hope you're enjoying them. I know I just really appreciate anyone who is out there supporting me and trying to get the message out there, and get people thinking and talking. And I can't thank you guys enough. You guys are incredible. It's amazing. It really is, and I appreciate each and every one of you. Just want to wrap up with a couple announcements here, of course. So let me just go ahead and bring this up. Gotta talk about it, guys, and I'm telling you, if you're not gonna be there, then you are slipping, man. We are talking about the Trivium. This is Funnel 3, Knowledge, Understanding, and Wisdom. It's gonna be a live event June 24th and 25th, and you have to be there, guys. There is some incredible speakers that are gonna be there, presenters, and you don't want to miss it. You can register, obviously, at freedomundernaturalllaw.com. And it's going to be incredible. 2-day event, guys. Like, I can't wait for this event. It's going to be very, very important, very powerful. There's so many great presenters that are going to be there. The next time I do an interview and I do an update, I will have the list of all the speakers that are going to be there. Incredible stuff, guys. So please mark it on your calendar. You want to be there for this. June 24th and 25th. It's a 2-day event, all-day event, and it was really cool and unique. Is that at the end of each evening, you are going to get a chance to ask questions to the presenters for that day. There's going to be a round table at the end, so write down any questions that you may have for any of the presenters for that day, and then you will have a chance to actually get your question out to them, have them answer it for you. So that is a really unique thing that I think everyone should take advantage of, because you will actually get in real time to talk to the person and ask them a question or get them to clear up something if you didn't quite understand during their presentation. So please, guys, mark it on your calendars. You want to be there. Then I will give you guys next time I'm on here, I'll give you the list of all the presenters there. So make sure you go check it out, guys. That is the Trivium Knowledge, Understanding Wisdom. It is going to be an incredible event, guys. You don't want to miss it. And I will see you there for sure. Absolutely. And let's go ahead and just show you that. There's my new thumbnail just to advertise my shows right here. And it's awesome. I love it. Turned out amazing. You can find all of my incredible stuff on the different platforms here. You can find me now on Rumble, so I'll leave a link to that if you want to go check out my Rumble channel. There's actually videos there too, interviews that I've done that I can't post here, obviously. If I did, they would just get flagged and probably get me taken off of here. So what you can do is head over to Rumble. I'll leave a link in the description, and there's like several, there's a few actually, quite a few interviews over there that I just can't post here. So check it out, guys. I'm just went over to Rumble, haven't been paid much attention to it till recently, so please go over, please subscribe. I'm trying to get my numbers up there, and I will continue posting there. You can also find me at theonegreatworknetwork.com, along with over plus 70 amazing creators there. You have to check it out, guys. There will be a link in the description for that too. That's the onegreatworknetwork.com. Obviously YouTube here, and then you can also find me 3 days a week over at Revolution Radio, guys. That's revolution.radio. I am there Saturday evenings with my amazing co-host Jonathan Wright for the Crypt, Rick, and Jonathan show. That is from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Studio B. Incredible guests there. We talk about so many of these important topics. You will really find a topic, I'm sure, and a guest that is going to connect with you. It's great stuff. Jonathan is an amazing co-host, so please check it out, guys. Don't forget, I'm also on my own show there Monday evenings, 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm in Studio A. Incredible stuff going on there, and it was really cool is that if you go over to revolution.radio up to the archives section, you go in there and you can get all of my interviews, all of my shows from over the past year and a half. Incredible stuff. And it's amazing. The archive section is incredible. Shows going back so far. So definitely check it out, guys. And then I'm also on Friday nights. I do kind of a music show. It's a lot of fun. We play a lot of music. We talk a lot about music. That is in the Hawk's Nest. So just go over there to revolution.radio. And that is on Friday evenings in the Hawk's Nest, and it's 8 till whenever I go. Sometimes it's 8 till 10, 8 till 11, 8 till midnight. You never know. But I start at 8 p.m. usually, maybe 8:30, and we just have a lot of fun playing cool music, all different types of music from all different genres. So be there. That is Music from the Crypt with yours truly. So thank you guys so much for all your support. Take care of each other. Take care of yourself. And remember, you are the greatest at being you. Nobody does it better. And if you do want to come on the show for an interview, I'm not hard to get a hold of, guys. I'm telling you, just send me an email. binthinkingpodcast@gmail.com. binthinkingpodcast@gmail.com. If you want to come on here, talk about any topic, nothing is off limits here, then please send me an email. If there's somebody you would like me to interview that you think I'd do a great interview with, please send me an email, guys. I love interacting with you, love reading your comments, love getting your emails. Appreciate, I can't say it enough, appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you so much. Take care of yourself, take care of the people around you, and start taking care of the whole world, because we need it. People need to start taking care of each other. So peace, guys. I'll see you soon with another great interview. Stay safe.
Are you interested in the paranormal? Murder mysteries, cryptocurrency, and thought-provoking interviews? Then check out Crypt Rick's I've Been Thinking on YouTube, or every Monday night at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Studio A at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. Welcome to the Crypt.